Hey guys. This is part 3 of What If Naruto Have the Power to Heal and Destroy. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 13. Hear My Existence. The clearing remained silent as the Nara waited for the attack to come. Hey! What's going on? The sound leader exclaimed, looking in the direction of his comrades. Oh, you're talking to this guy? A voice was heard throughout the clearing. The next moment, the body of a sound nin fell to the ground with a kunai impaled into his neck. Sorry, but the two of us got into a disagreement, Naruto said as he landed next to the body. Who are you? One of the Oto shinobi asked. Fear was starting to appear in his eyes. The blonde ignored the question as he walked towards the Nara. Pretty decent performance. For a second there I was worried that you would throw the towel before I got here, the boy commented. Shikamaru smirked. I knew you wouldn't let me hear the end of it if I'd done it. It would have been too troublesome having you criticize me every day at my grave, the black-haired boy simply said. A smirk appeared in Blonde's face as well. That's true, he said as he turned to look at the group of Oto shinobi. But you can let go of the jutsu now. The Sora Sharingan appeared on Naruto's eyes. I have them in my sight, the boy announced. The Oto nins felt fear overcome them as they saw their reflection on the blonde Sharingan eyes. One by one, the sound shinobi dropped to the ground unconscious. What did you do to them? Shikamaru asked astonished as he looked at the unmoving bodies all over the clearing. Naruto rubbed his eyes due to the strain caused by his technique. I sent them to hell, the blonde genin simply said. The genin walked towards the leader of the Oto group and searched his pouch. Here the boy threw a soldier pill towards Shikamaru. The Nara caught the pill and ate it. You said that you were worried that I might have given up, the black-haired boy said. For how long have you been here? He asked, already preparing the glare. The blonde simply shrugged. For a couple of minutes, he stated as he took another soldier pill from the sound nin's pouch and ate it. Long enough to hear your it's over speech. A smirk appeared on his face. Nice piece of work. If this whole shinobi deal doesn't work out, you could become a writer. I have some connections. I could get you a publisher. Naruto mocked his friends. Shikamaru glared at Naruto. He had expected something like this already. Well, we should get going, the blonde said as he started. We're in the middle of a chase after all, he said as he jumped on a tree branch. The black-haired boy sighed before jumping on another branch and resuming his pursuit while muttering, troublesome. Naruto turned around to follow the Nara, but looked back before starting on his run. The blonde's eyes regarded the Oto nins' bodies with utter contempt. Amaterasu, the boy said with a whisper right before black flames appeared on the clearing and consumed the sound shinobi's bodies. We won't be ridiculed by a child, one of the Oto nin exclaimed as he charged towards Neji with a kunai in his hand. The young Hyuga merely tilted his body forward, and with a fluid movement of his left arm, he deviated the attack away from him by simply pushing the sound shinobi's forearm. The Oto nin tried to regain his composure by doing a roundhouse kick, but his leg was easily caught by Neji, who delivered a swift juken strike on the Oto nin's chest, sending him flying backwards. Immediately, the third sound shinobi appeared behind the black-haired boy, a kunai traveling in direction of the Hyuga's neck. Right before the blade pierced the Konoha genin's skin, a chakra sphere formed around his body, repelling the Oto nin back. Kiba, take Hinata-sama to the Hyuga household, Neji said without turning around. I'll hold them off. All Kiba could do was nod before making sure Hinata was secured on his back and turned around. Before the Inuzuka started off, the boy looked back to see the three sound nin getting back on their feet and standing in front of the Hyuga. Good luck, Neji. Damn it! He's still following us, Kankuro complained as he jumped between branches with his younger brother's arm over his shoulder. The puppet user could clearly feel the Uchiha's chakra behind them. Temari gave a concerned look to her black-haired brother. If they didn't get out of this village soon enough, Gaara would. Suddenly, Kankuro gasped in surprise as the redhead started to stir. A small and low laugh could be heard from the younger sibling. He's coming too, Gaara said softly, not completely conscious yet. I can feel it, both the Uchiha and him, they're getting closer. Kankuro could feel his brother's demonic chakra leaking from the redhead's body. Him? The puppet user asked as he looked confused at his sister. The blonde girl bit her lower lip. He must be talking about the Uzumaki guy. Why him? Kankuro asked. She was pretty sure that she would soon draw blood from her lip. Didn't you feel it? Temari asked her brother. That thing awoke during that guy's fight. she explained. Her worry and fear was evident in her expression. Something about that Uzumaki guy's chakra affected it. Kankuro frowned. What do you mean affected? The boy asked. Like it called out to it. Temari tried to explain. Don't ask me how or why, but during his fight, Gaara was smiling, and you know what smile I'm talking about. The Sand Kunoichi looked at her brother again. The puppet user looked down at the boy he was carrying. He knew that smile pretty well, an expression that was closely related with the crimson color of blood. The Kunoichi sighed. The two of them are similar. The look that guy had when he pushed the Hyuga back during the preliminary was one full of hatred, just like Gaara's, and the killer intent he gives off is suffocating, just like Gaara's. The brown-haired boy finished his sister's sentence. He stole another nervous glance at his brother. Suddenly, Temari stopped on his track. The girl looked down at her feet as one of her hands clenched the fan on her back. What are you doing? Kankuro exclaimed as he stopped as well. Temari looked at her brother straight in the eye, determination dawning on her expression. I'll hold back that Uzumaki guy, she simply stated. Immediately, a bewildered look appeared on Kankuro's face as he prepared to argue his older sister's statement. Listen, she started again, preventing the brown-haired boy from speaking. The Uchiha we simply have to outrun, but that guy is affecting it directly. If he keeps getting closer, that thing might just completely wake up. Terror appeared on Kankuro's face with the mere thought of that. You can get Gaara out of here faster, meanwhile I'll prevent that guy from getting closer to him, the blonde girl said as she turned around. Kankuro brought his free hand forward. But he desperately wanted to say something that would change his sister's mind. The Kunoichi looked back at her brother. Don't worry, she assured him. Just leave everything to Nei-san, Temari said, giving her younger brother a broad smile before starting back the way they came. The Sand Genin could only stand there and watch his sister disappear among the trees, her smile engraved in his mind. He could not remember the last time they treated each other as siblings. An Oto-nin was thrown back with enough force to break the fence behind him. Neji stood panting in front of his opponent's unmoving body. The Hyuga had little time to recover before he jumped into the air to dodge a barrage of kunai thrown at him. The two remaining sound shinobi immediately appeared next to him, one on each side. Fudokaten and the boy, as soon he saw their kunais traveling towards him, the chakra barrier repelled the two attackers. Damn, Neji complained in his mind. It's even harder in midair. The black-haired boy thought as he recalled how his defense had gone from a dome to a sphere due to his previously airborne status. He's getting tired, one of the sound shinobi eagerly announced. The Hyuga prodigy wished he was wrong. He wasn't 100% from his battle with the blonde genin, and the successive use of Fudokaten had taken a toll on his body and chakra supply. The two Oto-nins rushed forwards to attack. Neji was able to dodge their assault and deliver a couple of juken strikes to their arms. The boy knew that no number of strikes to limbs would help since his opponents were only using taijutsu. Cutting the chakra flow to their extremities would not hinder their physical strength much. The leaf genin needed an opening to strike their vital organs, and he needed it fast. In a gamble, Neji jumped over one of the sound nin's shoulder, landing behind the shinobi. The Hyuga immediately ducked, right before the Oto-nin's hand swiped through where he had been with the kunai in hand. Seeing his opening, the black-haired boy gathered chakra in his right palm before driving it into his opponent's chest as the man finished turning around. The juken strike was strong enough to send the Oto shinobi flying back as blood sputtered out of his mouth. Neji had made sure to add enough chakra in the strike to send the sound nin's heart into shock. Bastard! The remaining Oto shinobi shouted as he tried to kick the boy. Neji moved his body back to dodge the roundhouse kick that was directed his way. The sound nin followed with a forward kick with his left leg, but missed as the black-haired boy ducked under it. Immediately, the Hyuga rose slightly, capturing the Oto-nin's leg with his arm and shoulder, and delivering a powerful juken strike to the back of the man's leg before releasing it and moving back. The sound shinobi dropped to his knees as he grabbed his left leg in pain. The strike had severed several ligaments along the upper part of his leg, rendering him immobile. The man looked up. Immediately his eyes were covered by fear as he found himself staring directly at the leaf nin's Byakugan eyes. This, Neji began as he gathered chakra in his pointer and middle finger. It's the end for you, the boy declared before he drove a swift strike on his opponent's neck. The Oto-nin fell on his back as blood overflowed in his brains. The Hyuga simply turned around, leaving his enemy to drown on his own blood. Panting out of exhaustion, Neji looked towards the end of the street. Kiba should have gotten to the Hyuga household by now, the black-haired boy thought. It was hard for him to think of something. He wanted nothing more than just drop to the ground and let sweet unconsciousness take him. Moving towards the fence, Neji let his back rest against the wood before looking up at the sky and sighing. The boy clenched his chest. Ever since his fight with Uzumaki, his pulse had been erratic, a sign that the side effects of the blonde's jutsu still hadn't worn out. Suddenly, the Hyuga's eyes widened. Looking towards the end of the street, he could see a group of 5 sound shinobi rushing towards him. Forcing his body away from the wall, Neji turned to face the incoming party. "Hinata-sama, I doubt that I will be able to apologize to you in person." The boy thought. He could hardly keep his eyes open now. "I was blinded by my hatred for the main house." The Oto group was getting near now. Even if his eyes were tired, the black-haired genin could clearly see the kunais in their hands. "I still hate the main house, but now, I want to." One of the Sound Nin's kunais was traveling directly towards the Hyuga, and the boy was too tired to do anything about it. Suddenly it felt like a gust of wind went tunneling through the street. The Oto shinobi were all blown away by a powerful force before they reached him. "How dare you raise your weapons against my nephew?" Hayashi's voice thundered. Niji's eyes widened again as his uncle appeared in front of him, Byakugan blazing with cold fury. "You did an excellent job, Neji," the man said as he turned around. Instead of using the Byakugan's ability, his voice was surprisingly calm, completely opposite to the killer intent he was giving off. "Just rest now, I'll take care of this vermin," Hayashi declared as he turned around to look at the terror-stricken face of the Sound Nins. Neji could only stare at his uncle's back as the man prepared to attack. Knowing that he was done with his part, and the rest would be taken care of, the Hyuga boy closed his eyes and let his body fall back. "Hinata-sama." He couldn't hear the fighting anymore. "I want to find something beyond this hatred." With the ghost of a smile on his face, Neji was finally able to rest. That's strange," Pakin commented as he led the 2 genins. "What happened?" Shino asked. The small dog sniffed the air to make sure before answering. One of the Sand Nins changed directions. The canine informed. "What?" Sakura exclaimed. "Which one?" Pakin sniffed the air again. "I believe it's the female," the dog said. "But the weird part is that she's going around us." Pakin concentrated his sense of smell into figuring out the reason why the Suna Kunoichi would want to move behind them. "I see," the canine thought as his nose caught a scent of something that was following them. "Should we move to intercept?" Shino wondered. The insects inside of him were getting ready to move out. The dog shook his head. "Our mission is not to engage the sand, we're here to prevent the Uchiha from confronting them," Pakin said with an air of authority. The 2 Konoha genins couldn't do anything besides nod. They were still far away, Naruto realized as he and Shikamaru rushed through the tree branches. "I swear, Shikamaru, I'll leave you behind if you don't hurry up," Naruto shouted at his comrade that was trailing behind. "Take a kunai and shove it. Not all of us have your monstrous amount of stamina." The Nara shouted back, though he still willed his body to move faster. Naruto prepared a retort when something caught his attention. "Look out!" the blonde warned as he moved out of the way. Catching the warning, Shikamaru jumped to the side. A second after, a powerful gust of wind swept through where they had been standing. "What was that?" the black-haired genin asked as he hid behind a tree, just in case another attack might be directed their way. "I think she might have a crush on you, Shikamaru." At Naruto's comments, the Nara stepped out of his hiding place, his eyes widening at the sight of the fan-wielding Temari. "I have to say, I'm a little jealous." The blonde looked back at his friend, a small smirk playing on his face. Shikamaru glared at the blonde. "Shut up," he simply said. The Nara's gaze fell on the new arrival. She had a serious expression on her face, a tight grip on her fan, and Shikamaru could have sworn she seemed to be shaking. Shaking his own head, the black-haired genin addressed his comrade. "I'll stay behind while you go on," the boy said. Naruto turned around and regarded the Nara for a couple of seconds. "Hell no!" Shikamaru was slightly taken back by the Bond boy's response. "I saw what you did during your match with her, you already blew your chance," the Sharingan user said. With a sigh, the Nara had no other option but to give up. "I knew he would hold that over my head," the black-haired genin thought. "Just don't mess around, okay?" the boy said as he jumped back into a tree branch. Yeah, just go and get out of my sight," Naruto said as he turned around to look at Temari. Shikamaru dashed past the 2 blondes. He was surprised that the Suna Kunoichi hadn't even acknowledged his presence. "So your target is Naruto," the boy thought as left them behind. The blonde boy observed his opponent. He had taken notice of her state of nervousness. "So, what does a pretty girl like you want with me?" the Leaf Nin asked. "Besides the obvious." he teased with a small smirk. Damn, I've spent too much with Ero-sensei. Without answering or even acknowledging the boy's questions, Temari raised her fan. Kamaitachi no jutsu! She shouted as she beat her fan, causing another gust of wind to sweep through. Naruto jumped out of the attack's way with ease. The boy's right hand immediately moved towards his tool pouch to take out a kunai. Kamaitachi no jutsu! The second attack came faster than the Leaf Nin had expected. The Bond boy had to jump behind a tree to prevent getting hit. I have to keep him here, Temari thought. I can't let him get close to Gaara. The blonde boy frowned behind the tree. That fan could be a problem. Making the familiar hand signs, the Konoha genin created a pair of clones who rushed towards the kunoichi. Just as the boy had predicted, the girl's wind jutsu wiped his bushins out of existence. Immediately, Naruto took out a kunai and moved to attack, but caught his miscalculation a little too late. Kamaitachi no jutsu! The boy hadn't reached the midpoint of his advance when the jutsu hit him, sending him flying back, only stopping when he hit a tree. The leaf shinobi had almost no time to get on his feet and jump out of the way as the blonde girl rushed towards him and swung her closed fan. The weapon hit the tree with enough strength to snap its trunk. That could have been me. Naruto sighed from another branch. With a quick glance at her opponent's new position, Temari opened her fan and swung it on the boy's direction with one fluent movement. The Konoha shinobi had not choice but to jump and get back into hiding. I never expected her reaction time to be this good, the boy pondered. Temari was beginning to feel the toll of her efforts. Kankuro, you better make use of the time I'm giving you, the girl thought. She had never released so many attacks in such rapid succession, and now it was really draining her. The signs of the kunoichi's exhaustion were not lost to the blonde boy. I could just keep attacking until she runs out of chakra, the leaf shinobi wondered. But who knows how long that would take? It totally defeats the purpose. Taking a deep breath, the boy created a bushin. Both leaf genins ran out of hiding, each one throwing a pair of kunais towards the kunoichi. Temari immediately beat her fan, releasing her wind jutsu. Stepping on his clone's shoulder, Naruto jumped out of the range of the attack. Just as he expected, the blonde girl shot another gust of wind towards him. The boy created another bushin and shielded himself behind his body. Sorry, the genin said to his look-alike. The clone merely gave him a smirk before disappearing into a cloud of smoke along with the futon jutsu. Creating one more clone behind him in order to propel back down, Naruto shot himself towards the sand kunoichi. Once again, the girl's maneuverability surprised the leaf nin as his kunai was stopped by the girl's fan. Looking at his opponent's face, the boy received a smirk from the kunoichi. Gotcha, she said in a low voice before pushing the Konoha shinobi back. Kamaitachi no jutsu! Temari released her jutsu, sending her fellow blonde flying back at full force. Naruto hit the ground hard and once again lacked the time to lament anything as he had to immediately jump out of the way to evade another gust of wind. Damn, if I could just stop her for 1 second, the boy complained. Suddenly, the genin could hear a familiar, not annoying, laughter inside his head. Ha ha ha, it seems that she has more upper body strength than you, Kit. The fox's voice said with the usual mocking tone. Shut up, I don't have time for this. The boy raged in his mind as he tried to catch his breath. Kyubi's laughter never quivered. Well, it just so happens that I know a way out of this predicament you have gotten yourself into. At the boy's silence, the Bija's laughter grew stronger. Aren't we interested? The fox teased. The boy's patience was running short. Are you going to tell me or not? He exclaimed in his head. A chuckle escaped the fox before continuing. You need to stop thinking about the situation strategically and start thinking logically. Kyubi waited to savor the boy's confusion before proceeding. Think about it, Kit. For what we have seen of her, we can safely assume that she's a proud female warrior. The Jinchuriki nodded. And there's one thing that is almost guaranteed to stop a proud female. He could feel the smirk forming in the Bija's face. Which is? The boy asked. A part of him was slightly scared of what the answer might be. The laughter returned to his head. He, what you do is this. The fox could barely control the glee in his voice. Naruto was unable to control the blush that appeared in his face after hearing the Bija's words. What the hell? That's anything but logical, the boy screamed in his mind. By now, Kyubi was roaring in laughter. If you're man enough, you'll do it. The fox nudged. Come on, Kit, quick and painless. Well, for the most part, easy for you to say. The genin thought as he tried to gather his courage. I just know I'm going to regret this in the morning. The blonde thought with a sigh. Kagebushin no jutsu. 3 Naruto jumped from their hiding place towards the Suna Kunoichi. Temari swung her fan, directing a gust of wind towards her attackers. She wasn't surprised when all 3 of them disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Immediately, 5 more blondes jumped from the treetop. Without thinking twice, the girl beat her fan once again, wiping the group of Bushin out of existence. Before the cloud of the clones disappeared completely, the girl became aware of 8 more Konoha nins falling from above. Kamaitachi no Jutsu. The powerful blast of wind shot upwards, taking out all 8 attackers. Temari watched the cloud dissipate. Suddenly her eyes widened as her gaze dropped down. Having taken advantage of the distraction caused by his clones, the Leaf Genin had made a dash directly towards the girl. Acting on instinct, Temari blocked the incoming attack with her fan. Naruto gulped. He could see the blonde girl's body preparing to push him back again to launch another attack. It was now or never. Putting one hand on the Kunoichi's fan, the blonde brought it down, lowering the girl's head in the process, and leaned the upper part of his body forward as he placed his other hand in her shoulder to direct her towards him. Before Temari knew what had happened, her lips had been caught by his. Time seemed to have stopped. She was aware that her defenses were down, aware that her fan was blocked, and even aware about the boy in front of her. It was the point where their bodies connected that she wasn't too sure of. Suddenly, the Kunoichi felt the hand that had been placed on her shoulder pulled back and placed on the upper part of her abdomen. Gathering chakra in his palm, Naruto pushed the girl in front of him back with a Juken-like strike, focusing more on the impact rather than damaging internal organs. The attack was strong enough to send Temari back against a tree, hitting her head hard in the process. The blonde boy tried to catch his breath. There, Kyubi's voice sounded in his head. That wasn't so bad now, was it? The fox started laughing. In fact, I'm willing to bet that you enjoyed it. The Bijou teased before continuing laughing. Naruto gritted his teeth at the fox's comments, yet his hand had moved unconsciously towards his lips as he couldn't fight off the blush that had spread throughout his face or the thoughts of how soft her lips had been. At least this was better than last time. The blonde admitted before jumping back on the branches and continuing on his way, not before stealing one last glance at the resting Kunoichi he had stolen a kiss from. Chapter 14. As he descended into madness, Kankuro kept looking back over his shoulder as he jumped from branch to branch. Please, be alright, the boy whispered, hoping that by some way, his sister would hear him. It had already been 20 minutes since she went to try to hold off that blonde boy, and 5 minutes since he was able to feel her chakra at all. The puppet user kept telling himself that it was all because they were now too far apart, and he never bothered to hone his chakra detection skills. It was needless to say that it was failing miserably, and he was getting more and more worried with every minute that passed. The brown-haired boy sighed. At least you're still out, he thought as he looked at the sleeping form of his younger brother, not daring speak it out of fear of jinxing it. Suddenly, Kankuro's eyes shot open. He had been so preoccupied with his sister's status that he had not caught on to a more imminent problem. While he had been musing in his mind, the Uchiha guy had been getting closer and closer, to the point that, if Kankuro dared to look back again, he would now be able to see him approach. Before the Sand Genin could think of something to do, he was unexpectedly pushed aside against a tree. Opening his eyes, the boy froze in his place as he beheld the terrifying sight of his younger brother baring his fangs at someone. Forcing his neck to turn, Kankuro's eyes set on the raven-haired genin that was now foolishly standing just a few branches from Gaara. The redhead observed the Uchiha as he clenched his head in obvious pain, yet as a smile started to form in his face. Whatever it is you're trying to pull, Sasuke began as he took out a kunai. It ends here. The Sharingan appeared in the raven-haired genin's eyes. And? Gaara asked, his voice coming out strained. Nothing is going to end. A weird blue pattern appeared in his right arm as the hold of the redhead's left hand on his head tightened. Nothing is going to end until Mother is satisfied, the Suna Genin exclaimed as the blue pattern spread all the way to the right side of his face, and he dropped to his knees. Sasuke fought the urge to step back. His eyes watched in disbelief as the redhead in front of him started to change. Gaara's right arm had apparently changed into what appeared to be a sand claw, awfully similar to the thing that had grabbed his arm back in the stadium. The Sand Genin's face had become a grotesque sight as his right side resembled that of a monster, all the while a frightening chakra seeped out of his body. The Uchiha's Sharingan eyes widened when he felt the redhead's chakra. Its terrorizing feeling seemed familiar to him. Somehow, someway, the chakra reminded him of Naruto. Snapping out of his trance, Sasuke jumped just before the Suna Genin's sand claw came crashing through the tree branch he had been standing on. The Uchiha had little time to contemplate the situation as the sand arm immediately shot up, destroying everything in his path, and leaving the leaf genin no other choice but to jump from tree to tree as the sand monstrosity chased him around. The sand limb retracted back to the redhead. "What's the matter?" Gaara's voice had become raspy and grunt-like. "It's no fun if you just jump all over the place. Mother won't like that at all," the sand genin commented as he looked at his opponent. Sasuke took notice at how the redhead's right eye had changed. It had become all black with a yellow pupil. It was the yellow color that got to him. It reminded him of a certain blonde, and a mere memory of his teammate, accompanied with the strange chakra that the Suna genin was giving off, put the Uchiha on edge. Shaking those thoughts off his mind, the raven-haired boy took out a kunai just as the sand claw shot directly towards him. Jumping to meet the attack, Sasuke impaled his kunai right on Claw's palm. There was no reaction or sign of pain from the sand shinobi. Instead, the claw began to close in on the Uchiha. Realizing his mistake, Sasuke used his impaled kunai to propel himself away from the monstrous limb just as the piece of metal sunk into the sand. Gaara merely smiled and proceeded to do a flailing movement with his sand arm. Suddenly, the captured kunai shot straight towards the leaf genin's face. Sasuke was barely able to move his head a few inches, but managed to evade the incoming blade with only a cut on the cheek. Landing on a nearby branch, the boy brought his hand to his cheek and checked his wound. Deeming the cut as nothing to be worried about, he set his attention back on the redhead. "Are you going to get serious?" Gaara asked in a taunting voice. "We were told that the Uchiha were elite shinobi. It seems Mother and me were misinformed," the redhead commented. "Shut up!" the raven-haired boy exclaimed as he glared at the Suna genin. "You know nothing about the Uchiha clan," Sasuke declared. Suddenly an image of his blonde teammate and his blue Sharingan appeared in his mind. The raven-haired boy's eyes widened slightly. "It seems you don't know the Uchiha clan as much as you thought either." The voice's mind had chosen to send him this message which had been too familiar to the young Uchiha, causing his body to shake slightly. Merely laughing at the raven-haired boy's outburst, Gaara brought his deformed arm back. "Well then, show me!" he exclaimed as he thrust his arm forward. The sand claw increased in size as it flew towards the Uchiha. Sasuke evaded the attack by jumping over the limb, while the claw proceeded on clenching the tree the Konoha genin had just been standing on and break the trunk as though it were a twig. Gaara swiped his sand arm without releasing the tree, leaving the Sharingan user no other choice but to jump from branch to branch as trees were taken down one after the other. Sasuke was taken by surprise when the sand claw hurled the tree towards him, but managed to bring his feet forward to absorb the impact. The boy had less than a second to figure out what to do next as the sand claw came bursting through the tree trunk. Finding the monstrous limb less than 2 feet away from his face, the Uchiha's hand automatically went through a familiar series of hand seals. Gakakyu no Jutsu. The raven-haired boy shot a fireball towards the claw, successfully blasting the sand arm away. After the fire blast, the sand claw was reduced to nothing but a stump as it started to drop towards the ground. Sighing in relief, Sasuke started to prepare his body for a safe landing. Suddenly, the Uchiha's attention span back at the sand limb whose claw had reformed itself, and was flying straight towards him at great speed. Being already airborne, there was nothing that the Sharingan user could do to defend himself as the sand claw seized his body and started a violent dive towards the ground. Acting out of desperation, Sasuke's hand started on another set of hand seals. Housenka no Jutsu. Several fireballs shot from the raven-haired boy's mouth and hit the sand arm without any evident result. Shaking off his growing anxiety and trying to focus his mind, Sasuke directed the fireballs in a single point right at the end of the sand hand, successfully detaching the claw from the rest of the limb just in time for the raven-haired boy to grab on a tree branch and prevent his body from meeting the ground. "That's it," Sasuke thought as he stood up in the branch, and he glared at the laughing redhead in front of him before shooting his body forward. "Ha ha ha. That's more like it," Gaara exclaimed. "Come on and attack me," the Suna genin shouted as he thrust his sand claw forward. Sasuke moved towards the redhead at great speed. Looking straight up, he could see the sand genin's claw approaching towards him ready to strike. Jumping to the side just as the arm went crashing through the path he had previously walked, the Uchiha started circling the redhead, moving higher and closer to the evidently deranged boy. Gaara willed his sand arm to chase the Sharingan user among the trees. The branches were no obstacle for the sand monstrosity as it got closer to the raven-haired boy. The Jinchuriki started to smile at the thought of the blood he would soon offer Mother. The smile soon became an all-out laugh. Suddenly, the sun was blocked off for the redhead. Turning his head up, Gaara could see many of the branches that his claw had cut through falling towards him. Immediately, the genin pulled back his transformed arm and brought it over his head to protect himself from the incoming debris. With his arm taking the role of a shield, Gaara stood defenseless as Sasuke appeared in front of him, a smirk adorning his face, and delivered a hard punch on his face, sending the sand shinobi flying back. As the redhead flew back, too shocked to do anything, he was able to sense the Uchiha appearing behind his still airborne body. Gaara didn't have to look back to know that the smirk was still in the raven-haired boy's face. Flexing his body, Sasuke executed what seemed to be a spinning kick, burying his foot in the Suna Genin's gut and sending him flying down, hitting the ground hard. Taking advantage of his offensive streak, the raven-haired boy immediately started making hand seals. Gakakyu no Jutsu, he shouted before shooting another fireball at his opponent, creating a massive explosion. Panting as he waited for the smoke to clear, Sasuke stood on a tree branch trying to catch any sign of movement among the cloud that his attack had raised. Suddenly, a jolt of pain shot from his left shoulder. As the boy winced in pain, his attention was diverted from the dissipating cloud of smoke for a second, enough time for the sand claw to shot towards him and enclose his left leg. Sasuke was flailed through the air and slammed against the trunk of a tree with tremendous force. When the Uchiha's body started to fall, the sand claw returned, hitting him in the chest and driving the boy through many branches before throwing his body to the ground, leaving him apparently unconscious. The raven-haired boy was brought back to reality by the Suna Genin's laughter. Looking up, he was greeted by what seemed to be a giant fist made out of sand rushing down towards him. The Sharingan user was able to roll over at the last minute, managing to evade the attack. Getting up as quickly as he could, Sasuke was caught by surprise when the sand arm immediately recovered from its missed impact and shot towards him. Out of desperation, Sasuke jumped to a tree as he took out a kunai and starting to cut down the tree's smaller branches, causing many leaves to fall off and managing to conceal his body. Gaara's laughter boomed through the forest. Ha ha ha. Come out. This is just getting interesting. The redhead exclaimed as he laughed. You can't be done already. Mother is still expecting more. The deranged boy informed as he looked around. Kankuro closed his fist tightly to try to stop his shaking. This is bad. The puppet user though, as he watched his younger brother laugh manically. The brown-haired boy knew what his brother wanted. Blood to offer to that thing inside of him, and, at this point, it didn't matter who it was from. So, if he can't find the Uchiha, it would be just a matter of time before Gaara would set his sight towards him. Temari, what should I do? The Genin thought, not knowing if he would feel safer having his sister by his side, or as far from their younger brother as it was possible. Come on, Uchiha Sasuke! Gaara shouted with glee. I'll try to make it as quick as possible, but I can't make any promises. The redhead followed his statement with another fit of maniacal laughter. Giving his surroundings one last quick look, the Sand Genin started to take down random trees with his sand claw in his search for the Uchiha. The Sharingan user pressed his body firmly against the trunk of a tree, trying to make it the least visible possible as he heard the sound of trees being snapped in two like they were pencils. He silently prayed that the redhead wouldn't choose the one he was hiding behind. Another jolt of pain shot from the Uchiha's shoulder, causing the raven-haired boy to bite his lips in order to prevent any yelp of pain from escaping him as he gritted his left arm tightly. Sasuke's eyes wandered to the left side of his body, setting themselves on his left shoulder. The Leaf Genin's eyes widened as he saw most of his shoulder covered by black, flame-like marks. Closing his eyes, the boy tried to concentrate into willing the strange marks into retracting. I'm getting bored, the redhead announced as he took down another tree. You better come out before I. Gaara suddenly stopped his statement as he looked at the direction of they have come from and smiled. It seems that we're going to have company really soon. The Suna Genin informed before starting on another fit of laughter. Behind his hiding spot, Sasuke's eyes shot open at his opponent's revelation. Focusing his senses, the boy was able to sense a pair of familiar chakra signatures approaching. By now, Gaara's laughter had died down into a malicious chuckle. I wonder. The redhead begun as he started giving off an even more terrifying killer intent. If the sight of their blood would excite you the same way it does me. As soon as the words left Gaara's mouth, the whole forest changed while its physical state remained the same. The whole area was filled with the sound of electricity charging as killer intent, strong enough to match the redhead's, was released. Turning around with a smile on his face, Gaara faced his opponent. Sasuke stood just a couple of branches away from the Sand Genin. His eyes glared at the redhead with pure contempt as a Chidori burned in his left hand. You will not touch them, the Raven Boy declared as his mind was drowned with images of how all the people that he held dear had been taken away from him in one single night. I'll kill you before you get a chance to harm them. The Uchiha shouted as he shot towards his opponent, not caring about the pain his body was in or about the fact that the flame-like marks had spread all the way to his neck. Gaara's smile widened as he jumped to meet his prey, the sand claw already prepared to strike. "That's what I wanted!" the boy roared. "Chidori!" Sasuke screamed as he brought his electric-charged hand forwards. Lighting met sand. As he landed on a branch, the Uchiha looked back to find the monstrous claw detached from the redhead and flying through the air. A smile formed in his lips. Being too distracted by his accomplishment, Sasuke didn't realize when his feet touched the tree branch, nor when his legs gave up and he fell on the branch, forcing his body off the wood, and trying to ignore the tremendous pain that was cruising through his body. The raven-haired boy looked at the redhead. Sasuke's eyes widened as he was consumed by terror. A wicked smile had appeared on Gaara's face as his deranged eyes focused on his opponent. The gourd on his back started to disintegrate, turning into a new claw to replace the detached one and a gigantic tail with the same blue pattern as the other sand limb. Ha ha ha. The sand genin laughed manically as he dashed towards the Uchiha. Brining his claw up, the crazed boy prepared to strike. Sasuke waited for the pain to come when he heard a blow connect. But when the only pain that he felt was the one already running through his body, the Uchiha opened his eyes. Once again, the boy was surprised by the sight that greeted him. "You should be more careful, Sasuke," a monotonous voice said. Shino stood in front of the fallen Uchiha while in a branch beyond him stood Gaara with a bruise in his left cheek. The raven-haired boy found himself at loss of words as he stared at his former classmate pushing his sunglasses up. "Sasuke-kun!" Turning his head around, the Sharingan user could see his pink-haired teammate, and what seemed to be a dog wearing a Konoha headband, running towards him. "Are you ALRI-? Sakura began to ask as she reached the fallen boy, but stopped when she saw the flame-like patter on the boy's shoulder. "I'm alright," Sasuke murmured, reluctantly taking the pink-haired girl's help to stand up. "Okay, we got the Uchiha, now let's get out of here before something bad happens," Pakken merely said. "Did that dog just talk?" The raven-haired boy asked confused as he examined the strange canine. "I'm afraid we can't go anywhere," Shino informed, his eyes set on the deformed Suna shinobi in front of them. "I doubt that he would simply let us walk out," the Aburame said simply. Sakura cringed at the sight of the redhead's current form, but monstrous as it may appear, the thing that surprised her the most was how his chakra felt so similar to Naruto's. Gaara simply let out a laugh as he regarded the group of leaf neens. "Sasuke is my prey, so if you'd please stand aside," the boy said in a mocking tone. Sasuke tried to move his body forward to face his opponent, but was blocked by Shino. "Sasuke is in no shape to fight right now, so I'll be taking his place," the black-haired boy said calmly. "What?" Shino, no, the Uchiha tried to convince his former classmate's mind, but the Aburame simply ignored him and jumped a few branches forward. The only reaction at the change of opponents was a gleeful laughter from Gaara. "Why don't I just kill all of you?" the redhead exclaimed as he shot the sand claw forward. The Sharingan user watched what appeared to be a replay of his battle as Shino moved to evade and the sand limb chased him through the trees, running through any branches, and some trunks, that were on his way. The raven-haired boy couldn't help but notice that the claw's movements had become faster, leading him to conclude that his comrade had no chance of winning this battle. As a realization of the Uchiha's fears, the sand claw ran through the branch that the Aburame was about to land on, leaving the black-haired boy in a free fall towards the ground. Before Shino's body impacted the ground, the boy was caught by the sand monstrosity. Brining his prey's body up, Gaara smiled maliciously as his sand started to cover the struggling leaf genin's body. Enjoying the look of absolute terror in the eyes of his opponent's comrades, the redhead raised the sand-covered shinobi further, making sure to be in clear view of his friends. "Sabaka's so-so," the deranged genin shouted as the sand coffin contracted to crush his victim as the redhead laughed gleefully. Sasuke immediately forced his body to move, positioning it in front of Sakura in order to block their friend's tragic fate from her view. Roaring laughter celebrated the forest's new crimson taint. As the sand genin looked around to examine his artwork, Gaara's eyes widened in surprise and anger. In his fit of laughter, the boy's mind had visualized the glorious rain of blood, while he hadn't realized that the forest had remained as green as before. Dispersing the sand immediately, the redhead boy was surprised to find only a horde of insects instead of the black-haired boy. "No one has fallen for that one since Kiba," a monotonous voice said from behind Gaara. Turning around, all that Gaara's widened left eye could see was the Konoha genin's fist traveling straight towards him. The force of the punch was strong enough to send the Suna shinobi into a nearby tree. "I may lack a Sharingan, but please don't underestimate me," Shino simply said as he pushed his sunglasses up and regarded the redhead. A sigh of relief escaped Sasuke when his former classmate reappeared. Sasuke-kun, what are you doing? Sakura's words came up barely above a whisper, catching the Uchiha attention. The blush that appeared on the normally brooding boy's face was only matched by the one in the pink-haired girl's. In his attempt of preventing his teammate from witnessing their friend's imminent death, he had positioned his body in front of her. She was in a kneeling position, while his chest hovered a couple of inches away from her face while his right hand had a firm, yet soft, hold on her left shoulder. Sorry, the Uchiha said, his voice managing to come out even lower than Sakura's as he mentally cursed his awakening teenage hormones. Gaara growled as he glared at the black-haired boy. You're going to pay for that one, the Sand Genin declared as he swung his deformed arm forwards, sending the sand claw straight towards the Aburame. Kankuro stood dumbfounded. He had only heard about the Aburame clan once in his village from two elder shinobi discussing, as they put it, unorthodox ninja techniques. But to think that one of them could have fooled the person he feared the most so easily. The puppet user watched as the boy with sunglasses evaded his younger brother's attack with apparent ease, causing the redhead to growl and grunt in annoyance and frustration. Suddenly, Shino stopped moving. He simply stood on a branch with his hand in his pockets and waited as the sand claw approached him at a blinding speed. Sakura tried to scream, Sasuke tightened his fist, Kankuro gritted his teeth, and Gaara smiled wickedly as his claw was about to strike the black-haired boy. Just as the claw was about to close in, the monstrosity came to an abrupt stop in front of the Leaf Genin's face. Shino merely pushed his sunglasses up again, observing the sand limb as it began to break down, and chunks of sand fell to the ground. What's going on? Gaara exclaimed as he watched in terror as his sand, ignored his will and fell lifelessly. Shino brought one of his hands out of his pocket and pointed at the redhead. You haven't realized yet? The boy asked. Looking down, the Sand Genin's eyes widened as he found numerous black bugs crawling around his body. Kakaimushi Shino simply stated as many more bugs appeared crawling around his whole body. They have the ability to eat chakra, rendering techniques like yours. If Sasuke didn't know any better, he would have sworn that behind the collar of his shirt, the black-haired boy was smiling. Useless, the boy added before starting off towards the redhead. Gaara brought his crumbling sand arm up in order to defend himself. Shino merely closed his hand into a fist and drove it straight through the sand arm. The sand crumbled away like it was nothing, and the Aburame's fist sunk into the right side of the Sand Genin's face, sending him flying back. The redhead was able to use his tail before it broke down to get back on his feet, but the boy had not time to regard the situation as his opponent suddenly appeared in front of him and delivered a strong uppercut on his chin, causing the redhead's feet to leave the ground again. The black-haired boy followed with a kick on the Suna Genin's stomach that sent him flying into a tree trunk. With the destruction bugs still on his body and his sand falling slowly to the ground, Gaara struggled to stand up as everyone present remained quiet. Ha ha ha. The silence in the forest was broken by the redhead's crazed laughter. You really think? The boy began as what remained of his gourd turned into sand and what had fallen to the ground returned. That you could just separate mother from me that easily? Everyone watched in shock and horror, as every part of Gaara's body from the knees up was covered in sand and took a bestial form with the tail swinging lively in the back. Both eyes had become black with a strange yellow pupil while the boy's teeth became sharpened, resembling an animal's. A smile spread on the redhead's face as he regarded the people present in the forest. His sand body stirred slightly before he brought his closed fist forward. Unclenching his hands slowly, the deformed boy let the Kakaimushi fall to the ground as his smile widened. While his sunglasses and collar hid Shino's expression from everyone else, nothing prevented the others from seeing the Aburame's fist tightening in anger as he watched his dead destruction bugs being discarded. Gaara merely laughed before he tilted his body upwards and several mouths appeared on his monstrous body and begun to inhale air. Mugen Sajin de Tapa. The Sand Genin shouted before blasting a powerful gust of wind and sand. The force of the blast of air was strong enough to blow the Aburame away. Smiling once again, the redhead shot both of his arms forward towards the leaf Nin. Seeing the two sand limbs coming towards him, Shino tried to shift his body to dodge them, but due to his current airborne condition, one of them caught him by his right arm. Before the black-haired boy could react, Gaara willed his sand to contract and break the boy's arm just like he had done to the green-wearing one during the preliminaries. Delighted at the Aburame's screams, the redhead smiled as he used his arm to pull the body towards him and slamming his body into a nearby branch. With a victorious smile on his face, Gaara launched his body forward to deliver the final blow. Landing on the Konoha Genin's branch, the boy raised his disfigured claw. Once again, the finishing strike never connected as the Sunanin found his body unable to move just a few inches away from the Abdurrahim. You people are just too troublesome to deal with sometimes. A somewhat bored voice said from below the two genins. Shikamaru hung upside down from the branch that held his former classmate, and the deranged Sand Genin, his shadow connected to the former, restricting his movement. Shino, if you please get out of the way, this position is not as comfortable as it may appear. The Nara said sarcastically. Nodding, the Abdurrahim lifted his body off the branch and moved away just as the redhead next to him willed the sand in his body to attack the hanging shinobi below them. The Nara immediately disconnected his shadow from Gaara's and jumped to another branch before the sand could reach him. So, you're going to fight me next? The Suna Genin asked. His voice was a strange mix of both amusement at the sight of another prey and frustration at the lack of bloodshed. Shikamaru simply gave the redhead a confused look. Fight? Me? He asked, pointing at himself. Sorry, you must have me confused with someone who likes jumping around and go back and forth in fist fights. The black-haired boy said with a shrug of his shoulder. Besides, my abilities are meant for stalling, not fighting. Gaara let out a frustrated growl. Then get out of my sight! The boy exclaimed as he thrust his arms forward. The Leaf Genin dodged the incoming attacks by jumping into a higher branch, now standing at eye level with the redhead. Sorry, no can do. The black-haired boy simply stated. Otherwise he won't let me hear the end of it. The boy informed as he got into a meditation stance. Letting out another growl, the deformed shinobi jumped towards the Nara. The moment Gaara stepped on the branch, he found his body unable to move again, caught in the same technique as before. Stop that! The boy demanded as he willed his sand to attack, but by that time the Konoha Genin had already dispelled his jutsu and jumped to another branch. Simple yet extremely amusing to watch. Shikamaru commented as they stood over his, unofficial, opponent. Growl! Gaara screamed in frustration before swinging one of his arms, cutting through the tree where the Nara was standing and the ones around. Jumping as far as he could, Shikamaru barely managed to hang onto a branch on one of the trees that survived the Suna Genin's assault. The black-haired boy only had time to take out a kunai and a pair of shuriken before his right leg was pulled down by Gaara's sand claw. Thinking quickly, Shikamaru threw the three blades upward, cutting off several leaves and branches, and used their shadows to connect his with the redhead's, successfully stopping the boy's movement long enough to set himself free from his hold and jump to another branch. Shikamaru had no time to assess the situation. Before he could even react, a gigantic sand fist connected with his body, blasting him back against the tree, impacting the trunk hard. The Nara's body felt numbly on branch in a sitting position. All of your attempts have been futile. Gaara exclaimed, victorious and gleeful. A half-smile appeared on the black-haired boy as he lifted his head up. I told you already, my abilities are meant for stalling, he said as his smile turned into a smirk and his eyes mockingly regarded the redhead. I was only buying him enough time. Shikamaru commented as his eyes set on something beyond Gaara. A soft thud as he landed on a branch announced his arrival. Seriously, Shikamaru, I leave you alone for 5 minutes and you'd get yourself into trouble again. Naruto merely said, not paying attention at the situation. Naruto. Sakura whispered the blonde's name. Her emerald eyes caught his dark sapphire ones for a second. The boy gave her a simple nod and, for some reason unknown to her, she felt much safer. You! Gaara exclaimed as his face twisted into a sick form of happiness at the sight of the fellow Jinchuriki. You finally got here, the one that has been calling mother out. The deranged redhead stated as he observed the new arrival with glee. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he finally set his eyes on the transformed Sand Genin. I take it that by the form he has, it's a chibi. Naruto stated in his mind. In the boy's mind, the fox grunted. That stupid raccoon always tended to pick a human and become extremely attached to him or her. That's how he ended up trapped in that kettle in the first place. Kyubi informed. But to come off as the boy's mother and eat his sanity away like that, I think Shikaku has been losing it over the years, the Bayou commented, his tone carrying a hint of annoyance towards the tailed beast inside the redhead. Feeling a nudge from his mother, Gaara took advantage of the fact that the blonde had become distracted with something. Suna Shuriken! The crazed boy shouted as hurled a barrage of sand disc at his opponent. By the time Naruto became aware of the attack, it was already too late, and every single disc hit his body, packing enough force to lift his body off. Sasuke was surprised by what happened after the attack, but what really surprised was that Naruto had been hit by it. The wounded, airborne blonde simply disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Before Gaara could start his search for his opponent, the redhead felt as several kicks connected to his upper back and shoulder, sending him crashing down to the ground. Standing out, the Suna Jinchuriki looked up to find 5 Naruto about to launch their kunais at him. Mugen Sajin de Tapa, the Sand Genin released his attack immediately, effectively blowing all the blondes into clouds of smoke, though not before they released their kunais. None of the blades hit the redhead, instead landing around him. Something about the kunais caught Gaara's attention. Looking down, the boy found the 5 blades with explosive tags wrapped on them. Preparing to jump away from the blast zone, the Sand Genin was surprised when he found his feet unable to move again. Looking back down, the redhead saw 2 pairs of hands sprouted from the ground holding his head in place. Gaara was helpless as the 5 tags explode into a huge blast. "Damn you!" the redhead let out as he struggled to lift his body upright. His head moved upward and set on the blonde standing in front of him. A smirk appeared on Naruto's face. "Are you still enjoying yourself?" The Genin mocked the other Jinchuriki. Gaara merely grunted before the smile returned to his face. "Of course I am," the redhead informed, his face twisting and appearing even more insane. "This fight proves that I exist," the boy declared. Naruto narrowed his eyes. "Is this pity? What I'm feeling for you?" the blonde wondered, causing the Sand Genin to look at him confused. "Or do I envy you?" he continued. "All my life I wondered if my life had any meaning. At least you believe yours had one, but something as sad as that." Naruto's eyes appeared as though they softened. "I guess us beggars can't be choosers," he added with a dry laugh. Sakura felt like her heart ached at her teammate's words. Whatever sympathy was there in the blonde's eyes was gone in the next moment, as his eyes scornfully set on Gaara. "But you endangered my friends and I can't look away from that," Naruto stated as his blue Sharingan appeared in his eyes. Chapter 15. All I have. Naruto narrowed his eyes. "Is this pity? What I'm feeling for you?" the blonde wondered, causing the Sand Genin to look at him confused. "Or do I envy you?" he continued. "All my life, I wondered if my life had any meaning. At least you believe yours had one, but something as sad as that." Naruto's eyes appeared as though they softened. "I guess us beggars can't be choosers," he added with a dry laugh. Sakura felt like her heart ached at her teammate's words. Whatever sympathy was there in the blonde's eyes was gone in the next moment, as his eyes scornfully set on Gaara. "But you endangered my friends and I can't look away from that," Naruto stated as his blue Sharingan appeared in his eyes. If the redhead had been intimidated by the strange Sharingan, he was able to hide it perfectly. The deranged Suna Genin let out a malicious laugh as he stared right back at the Leaf Genin's glare. "That look in your eyes is perfect," Gaara commented as he smiled in glee. "I want you to look at me like that until the very moment when I'll spill your blood for mother," the Jinchuriki exclaimed as he thrust both arms forward in the direction of the blonde. Naruto jumped upwards, but instead of landing on a higher branch, the Konoha Genin used it to propel his body forward, creating enough force to speed past the incoming sand limbs. The blonde Jinchuriki closed his hand as he approached the redhead. The punch failed as the Suna shinobi jumped to a different branch before it could connect. Gaara wasted no time to attack. Not giving his opponent a chance to even turn around, the Sand Genin shot his body forward, his claws ready to strike his prey. The blonde jumped back the moment he sensed the incoming attack. Doing a back flip in midair to dodge his opponent's attack, the Leaf Genin sunk his feet in Gaara's back as he completed the 360 degrees spin, sending the boy down towards the ground. Taking the offensive, Naruto stopped the redhead's trip downward by grazing one of his ankles and swinging the Genin's body towards a tree, breaking the trunk as he flew through. The Suna shinobi stretched his sand claws in order to stop his flight. Landing on a nearby branch, the monstrous Genin glared at the blonde. "It's that best you have?" the boy exclaimed. "Mother and I waited for you after hearing your call, but is this all you have to show for it?" Naruto met the redhead's glare with his own. "I guess I'm putting quite a below-average performance," the Konoha Nin admitted. "I guess it'll be okay if I went a little wild." The moment the words left his mouth, the blonde disappeared from Gaara's sight just to reappear hovering over the Sand Genin the next second and drive his knee into the deranged boy's stomach. Even through the sand protection, Gaara could still feel the force from the blow his stomach received. His breath escaped his lungs and the Suna Nin's head was brought forwards as his body recoiled due to the pain. Blinded because of the strike, the redhead could not see the fist traveling straight towards his face. The punch's sound was heard throughout the forest as the Sand Genin was thrown flying backwards by its force. Moving at blinding speed, Naruto seemed to disappear again and reappear at the branch Gaara was traveling to. The blonde swung his leg forward, driving his kick into the redhead's back, stopping the deranged boy's flying trip and causing him to release a scream of pain. The leaf genin spun his body around and driving his heel into the sand shinobi's gut, in a similar fashion to what Sasuke had done before, and sending his fellow Jinchuriki flying down towards the ground. The Sharingan user did not waste any time. The boy's hands immediately started on the already familiar set on hand seals. Gakakyu no Jutsu! Naruto exclaimed before shooting a sizable fireball down to chase the redhead. The explosion signaled the impact. Before the dust and flames could dissipate, a pair of sand claws shot from the cloud of wreckage with the blonde Jinchuriki as their target. Jumping to higher branches, Naruto took out a kunai and slashed a pair of monstrous limbs as they approached him. The two arms seemingly started to fall before they suddenly came back to life and reformed themselves before returning to their pursuit of the Konoha shinobi. Naruto continued to dodge the two transformed limbs until they finally retreated and grabbed a nearby branch in order to pull Gaara back up. Hee-hey! Ha ha ha! The redhead started to snicker, but it soon turned into an all-out laugh. That's more like it, he declared. Mother is starting to enjoy this fight. The bloodlust in the sand nin's eyes was evident as he looked at the blonde. Let's together make Mother happy, the deranged boy shouted as he threw a piece of his sand body into the air. Sabaka aim! The barrage of sand lumps immediately started to fall down on the blonde. The Sharingan user was put on the defensive once again as all his movements were strictly to evade the flurry of strikes raining down on him. Branches and trunks were reduced to splinters as the onslaught of sand pierced through the trees as it sought the leaf shinobi. Damn it! Naruto cursed. He never expected that he'd be forced to use it so soon into the battle. Amaterasu, the teenage boy gazed at the sphere of sand above the trees where all the projectiles originated with his Sharingan eyes. The piece of sand was immediately overwhelmed by black flames that consumed it in a matter of moments, leaving nothing behind to prove that it existed. Gaara looked up with a horror-stricken face as his sand was reduced to nothing by the black flames. A piece of his mother that had always protected him simply disappeared in front of the redhead's eyes as though it was never even there. Bastard! The words left the boy's lips like a ghostly whisper. You bastard! The Jinchuriki's eyes set on the blonde in front of him, yellow eyes blazing in fury as they burned into the leaf genin. The spiky-haired boy hadn't felt such a strong killer intent since Itachi. Shifting his body slightly to the side, Naruto was able to hide the shaking in his hand. How dare you try to take Mother away from me? The transformed Suna shinobi shouted as his killer intent kept on rising. Mother is the only one important to me in this world. The only one that never deserted me and always remained by my side. The words roared through the forest, making some of the people present cringe at the fury they held. Mother is all I have, Gaara declared. Naruto remained silent for a couple of moments as his gaze regarded the redhead in front of him. All you have, the blonde simply repeated. Suddenly, a matching killer intent emanated from the Konoha nin as his eyes narrowed, forming a glare directed to the other Jinchuriki. In less than a second, Naruto had moved in front of Gaara and drove his fist into the sand genin's cheek, sending him flying back once again. Two spiky-haired clones appeared ready to receive the airborne boy. Using his Sharingan, Sasuke could follow as the three identical leaf genins trashed the deranged redhead around trees and branches. What surprised the raven-haired boy the most was not his teammates' impressive physical strength, nor the blinding speed of his movements, but the look that the once smiling face held. As much as Gaara's look carried dementia less than 5 minutes ago, Naruto's was now pure anger and disdain. Something that the Suna shinobi had said had made the former loudmouth snapped, sending the boy into a raging frenzy. A powerful kick sent the transformed teenager flying through numerous tree trunks, finally stopping several feet away. That thing is not all you have. The blonde's words were full of contempt. You have siblings, you have a family, you were probably even able to meet your father. Naruto closed his fist to try to stop the furious shaking. So don't come here and tell me that that thing inside you is all you have when you have pushed away everything else around you. His teeth were gritting now and his voice was coming out strained due to the anger. You had so much yet you still chose to become like this. You chose to be feared over than loved. The Jinchuriki's voice started to die out. It's because of you. It's because of people like you that I had. The teenage boy never finished the sentence as his hands suddenly went through the required hand seals and another fireball was released in direction of the redhead. The swiftness of the attack caught the redhead by surprise. Gaara could only bring his arms forward to protect himself as the flames engulfed his body. The impact of the fire jutsu was enough to send the sand genin flying a few branches back. I really hate people like you, Naruto declared as he glared at the deformed boy in front of him trying to stand back up. People that thrive of the knowledge of being feared. You claim being alone in this world, but the truth is that you view yourself above all other things. That the blonde thought he had under control were running wild now, locking yourself inside a barrier of sand and trying to sound like a victim. You don't know what real pain is, what it feels like to be betrayed by the few things you thought you had. Shut up! The redhead boy interrupted. His eyes set on the blonde, holding a mixture of anger and sorrow. You don't know anything about me, the Suna shinobi shot back. You don't know all I had to go through and how, at the very end, Mother was the only one that remained by my side. The Jinchuriki's voice came out strained as memories plague his mind. This is it. Please die. Suddenly, Gaara's killer intent returned full force. Betrayal? His strange yellow eyes glared at the blonde. Don't you dare speak to me about betrayal. Anger flooded out of the transformed boy as his breath started to come out strained. I'll never let anyone else betray me, the Sand-nin exclaimed before he thrust his arms forward. Monstrous limbs shot towards the spiky-haired boy, forcing him to jump from branch to branch in order to avoid their devastating rampage. The hatred that had been harbored in the blonde's eyes had now transferred to the redhead's as he continued to tear through trees and branches. I'll push everyone away. I won't allow them to get a chance to betray me again, he declared before retreating his sand claws and the mouths appeared on his body again. Mugen Sajin de Tapa. The powerful gust of wind and sand erupted from the Jinchuriki's mouths. Naruto immediately jumped behind a thick tree in order to escape the savage burst of dust that swept through the forest. A sand claw went through the trunk that the blonde was hiding behind, causing the leaf nin to jump to another branch to escape the monstrous limb that followed him. I'll destroy everyone in my path. I'll offer all of their blood to Mother and prove that I exist in this world, Gaara announced in his crazed rage, to prove that I was betrayed and that I will take my revenge on the world, he exclaimed as his transformed arms continued to chase his opponent. Without stopping his movements, the Konoha genin was able to set an eyes on the other Jinchuriki. I really can't forgive people like you, he stated as he jumped to a new branch seconds before the one he had been standing on was destroyed by the pursuing claw. Letting the rage and bloodlust consume you and turning into the demons they fear us to be, the teenage boy added. Shut up, the redhead shouted. You don't know anything about me. The speed of the sand claw suddenly increased, managing to grab a hold of the Sharingan user and slamming his body against a tree. Less than a second afterwards, the sand was already starting to cover his body. I'll kill you for the disrespect you have shown Mother and me, Gaara declared as his eyes glared at the blonde. Despite his seemingly imminent death, the spiky-haired boy merely continued to observe the sand genin. I met a guy just a few months ago, Naruto started. He showed me a hell that now haunts my nightmare. But I tried, and I'm still trying, to look past all the things I saw in that place, the leaf shinobi revealed as his eyes narrowed. And now I meet someone like you, who has given up and thrown himself into the depths of madness with foolish thoughts of retribution. A dark blue chakra started to emanate from the blonde's body. It irks me to know and knowing that you have given up on the world so easily. With the boy's outburst, the navy chakra burst, freeing the Sharingan user from the sand. I really can't forgive you right now, he said as he set his eyes on the redhead in front of him. The two Jinchurikis glared at each other before dashing off forward. Blows were exchanged in midair. Flashback. You know, you really didn't have to accompany me shopping. A small, black-haired boy looked up at the young woman next to him before answering. Oka-san is worried about you since you have been going out so much lately, so I offered to come with you. 4-year-old Itachi simply stated. Uchiha Kagome sighed as she looked at her cousin's oldest child. You do know that I'm a jounin, right? If anyone is doing any babysitting, it's me looking after you. She tried to explain. Rank doesn't really matter. A well-trained chunin could sneak up on even a kage if the target's unaware and alone, Itachi merely said as he continued to walk. Do you expect me to be attacked by a group chunin in the middle of the village? She asked. The boy's eyes didn't even shift from the path ahead. Please don't put words in my mouth, Kagome-san, Itachi shot back. I said a chunin, not a group. Besides, I've seen you sparring. If you're distracted enough, you won't even see a genin coming. To say the least, the young woman was bewildered by 4-year-old's statement. Hey! I already told you that there was a specific reason why I did so poorly in that sparring match. She tried to defend herself. Then, what is it? I told you. I can't tell you right now, you're too young. For a leaf kunoichi, you sure make a lot of excuses. It's not fitting, the black-haired boy commented. Another sigh escaped Kagome. She should have known better than to get into an argument the Uchiha clan's resident genius. Uchiha Itachi will make a great shinobi someday, she was sure of it, but for now, he was nothing more than a know-it-all kid that could go against experienced adults in a myriad variety of discussions, and still come out making them look silly. She had grown really close to the boy, especially after Obito's tragedy, but that terrible weapon of destruction he called his mind did put a strain in their relationship. Well, fancy meeting you here. Both Uchiha turned to look at the sudden interruption. Casually walking towards the two black-haired relatives was one Namikaze Minato with what had become a trademark for the blonde man, a grin adorning his face. Minato-san, Kagome called out. A/N. See the ending note for explanation. Itachi couldn't help but raise an eyebrow at the sudden excitement in his cousin's voice at the sight of the already legendary Jounin. How are you on this fine day, Kagome-san? The young man asked as he gave the black-haired woman a small, courteous bow. The giggle that escaped the young woman almost made Itachi kick her in the shin and make a run for it. One thing that the 4-year-old boy really didn't want to see at the moment was his cousin acting all girly. Minato's gaze lowered to set on younger Uchiha. And what about you, Itachi-kun? Your name is coming up again and again as of lately. Fugaku-san and Mikoto-san must be really proud. The blonde man commented as he ruffled the boy's hair. Itachi's glare immediately set on the man in front of him. It was certain that the 4-year-old Uchiha was incredibly mature for his age. He was well aware that most people were both amazed and annoyed by his intellect. He could deal with anything or anyone without losing his composure, anyone except Namikaze Minato. Something about the Konoha yellow flash always managed to get on the boy's nerves. Swiping his hand, the black-haired kid pushed the man's hand away. Well, it seems that we still have the attitude problems to deal with, Minato commented, unfazed by the young boy's actions. I guess it's just normal for you to be jealous. After all, I'm already a renowned shinobi, while you're still a little kid with a kunai playset, he said as he straightened his body and stood proudly. A snort escaped the 4-year-old. Yeah, like I'm supposed to be envious of you. I've already heard about the incident between your Hiraishin and the waterfall. The boy shook his head to add to the insult. Seriously, it's just a matter of time before you find yourself falling in a volcano or something. Hey, watch it, you brat! That only happened while Hiraishin no Jutsu was still on its development stages. And stop gossiping with Jiraiya-sensei. Minato shot back, already falling into the boy's game. Oh, touched a sore spot, didn't we? And what was that about you blowing up the bull's corral while practicing that spiral sphere of yours? Itachi asked, his voice fully tainted by a mocking tone. The blonde man gave a small grunt. Like I have to explain my genius to you. Only a sorry shinobi would have such a sorry excuse. The black-haired boy commented. Do you have something to say, you little punk? As a matter of fact, yes. I want you to remain in that little throne of yours until I become a shinobi and beat you up myself. The blonde man and the black-haired boy glared at each other intensively. I accept that challenge. Hurry up, I don't want to wait too long for the day that I can finally kick your ass. Namikaze Minato. Kagome suddenly interrupted the argument. Are you really engaging in such childish fights against a 4-year-old? And losing too? Itachi added. The young woman gave her cousin a warning look before her eyes set back on the yellow flash whose face had turned red out of embarrassment, and his eyes looked at everything but Kagome. He started it, was all that the man could say. Kagome sighed in exasperation. You've got to be kidding me. Itachi watched in curiosity as Minato tried to explain himself to his cousin. For some reason, it was while talking to the blonde Jounin that Kagome seemed the happiest she had appeared ever since Obito's. What was it about Namikaze Minato that could possibly bring such a smile to Uchiha Kagome's face? End flashback. A pair of onyx eyes opened to look at the rain falling into the ground. Uchiha Itachi stood in one of the entrances to the Akatsuki base pondering on his sudden remembrance. Why am I remembering something like that now? The young man thought. As of late, Itachi's head had been plagued by his blonde target and the events of the night of their meeting. The image of the blue Sharingan seared into black-haired man's mind. The Akatsuki member had tried a basic meditation exercise to try to clear his head when the old memory found its way into the surface. Suddenly, realization hit him. Could it be? His train of thought was unfortunately cut off by the sound of approaching steps. Looking up, Itachi could see his blue-skinned companion walking towards him. There you are, he said once he reached the black-haired man. I'd be looking everywhere for you. The others told me that you got our new orders. Kisame commented. The Sharingan user nodded. Yes, he answered. We are to go to Konoha once again. the Uchiha added before simply walking into the ring. The former Kirin followed his black-haired companion. Goody, I finally get chance to meet the kid that kicked your ass a couple of months ago, he said. Itachi remained silent at the swordsman's words. I really don't know if I should capture him or thank him, Kisame remarked, adding a chuckle for effect. The Uchiha was able to keep himself in check as he continued to walk. I mean, the great Itachi being defeated, no humiliated, by a genin brat. When I heard about it I thought it was my birthday. The shark-like man commented before starting to laugh. Haha. I really wish I could have been there to see your face, he managed to add between his laughter. The Sharingan user didn't even stop, nor did his voice carry any sign of frustration. Keep it up, he started. And when you fall asleep I'll just take you down the pier and trade you for 10 boxes of Pocky, again, Itachi warned, earning a glare from the former Miss Shinobi. A tree came crashing down as the redhead's transformed body went through its trunk. Naruto stood panting on a branch as the Sand Nin's body was completely engulfed by dust. Scattered wood, burn marks, and craters laid throughout the forest as evidence of the fight between the two Jinchuriki. What's going on? At the sound of a new voice at the scene, Kankuro turned around to see Temari landing on the branch he had been standing. A sigh of relief escaped the puppet user at the sight of the blonde girl. Well, as you can see the scenario is getting worse by the second. Something about that guy is just irking Gaara further and further, he said before looking at his older sister skeptically. How come it took you so long to get here? The brown-haired boy asked. Surprising Kankuro, a blush appeared on the Suna Kunoichi. None of your business, she declared, looking away from her brother. Shrugging his sister reaction off, the boy set his eyes back on the fight between the two apparent monsters. Just like the blonde had expected it, a sand claw appeared flying towards him. After jumping into a higher branch, the leaf genin started to move in the direction of the deranged boy. Gaara looked up to see his opponent's foot about to connect with his face. Once again, the sand coat had been virtually useless in trying to block the pain, before the kick could send the redhead's body flying back. Naruto grabbed one of the transformed arms and swung the monstrous body, slamming the Suna genin into a tree. The spiky-haired boy followed by delivering a devastating uppercut under Gaara's chin, causing his body to lift off from the ground. Catching the rising body but the ankle, the Konoha shinobi slammed the redhead back into the ground before jumping into the air and starting on a set of hand seals. Enten Kawa no Jutsu, he called out before a blast of heat shot towards Gaara's transformed body. An explosion followed. The new cloud of dust and rubble was big enough to engulf some of the trees. Jumping to one of the highest branches, Naruto waited once more. Suna Shuriken. The barrage of sand projectiles appeared through the cloud of dust, destroying several trees on their way out. The blonde genin jumped higher up as his hands went through the necessary seals. Houseken no Jutsu. A barrage of small fireballs met with the sand shuriken, canceling each other out. As Naruto's feet were about to touch a branch, one of Redhead's transformed arms came crashing through, forcing the spiky-haired boy to create a clone to change his direction in mid-air. The moment when the leaf shinobi was finally able to land, the pain that had been bothering him for the last few months suddenly shot through his body, paralyzing the boy just as the second claw approached. Standing helplessly on a branch, the boy could do nothing to defend himself as the monstrous limb grabbed him by the arm and forcibly pulled him towards the source. Naruto found himself looking directly at Gaara's eyes. In his desperation, the Konoha nin didn't think twice. Tsukuyomi. Immediately, all the sand left the redhead's body. The Suna genin tried to move as terror invaded his face just to find himself unable to move. What's going on? The Jinchuriki exclaimed. He was no longer in the Konoha forest, but in some sort of dark wasteland. What have you done with mother? Standing a couple of feet away, the blonde simply glared at the redhead. Your mother won't be able to manifest in here, the genin stated. This is a place where all of your sins come back to pass judgment. A katana appeared between the two Jinchuriki. This is my world. Naruto took a hold of the sword. This is my hell, he said before thrusting the blade forward. Blue Sharingan eyes widened when the sword was stopped less than an inch from the Suna shinobi by the sand that had supposed to have disappeared. A wicked smile appeared on Gaara's face as his body was covered by the sand once more, returning to the raccoon-like form. I told you. The redhead's voice carried an ominous yet mocking tone. Mother will never desert me. Suddenly, Naruto was violently pushed back by an unseeing force as he found himself out of the Tsukuyomi mindscape. Finally stopping by hitting a tree, the blonde felt a new pain coursing through his body, this time originating from his eyes. Damn it! The scroll warned that this would happen if Tsukuyomi was rejected. The boy whispered to himself as he clenched his head. It must have been the One-Tail's doing, he commented, still trying to shake off the genjutsu's recoil. Ha! Gaara's demented laugh sounded through the forest. Was that your hell? The redhead asked as his chakra started to spike. Then allow me to bring mine out here. The blonde could only watch dumbfounded as sand suddenly skyrocketed from the Suna Genin's body and took the form of a giant raccoon. The enormous monstrosity roared, causing several of the trees in the surrounding area to shake. A massive claw started to move towards the still thunderstruck boy. Naruto! Sakura screamed as she saw that her teammate wasn't about to move. At the sound of her voice, the monstrous creature shifted its eyes towards the girl. A piece of sand unexpectedly shot towards the pink-haired Kunoichi, catching her by surprise and slamming her body against the tree. Sakura! Sasuke, Shikamaru, and Shino shouted at the same time. The three boys immediately jumped towards the now unconscious girl. Reaching his former classmate first, Shino tried to get rid of the sand that was currently choking her by using his bugs. To the Genin's dismay, the Kikai Mushi could not digest the chakra in the sand. Can you get her out? Shikamaru asked as he arrived. Shino was about to answer his friend when suddenly the sand came back to life and trapped the two black-haired boys. Guys! Sasuke exclaimed as his body got closer to his trapped comrades. Managing to free one of his legs, Shikamaru kicked the incoming Uchiha away, saving the raven-haired from being trapped by the sand. Naruto realized that his body was now shaking, though not out of pain nor shock, but of pure anger and rage. Damn you! He said as he looked up at the enormous raccoon. This fight is between the two of us. You didn't need to get them involved. The blonde shouted. The monster's only reaction was to laugh at the Konoha nin's words before starting to reach for the boy again. You'll pay. The Leaf Genin couldn't hold back his rage anymore as the sand claw was almost over him. I'm going to make you pay. The navy blue chakra engulfed his body once more. I'm going to make you pay for hurting them. Naruto exclaimed as his hand automatically started on a set of hand seals. Kuchio's no jutsu, a giant cloud of smoke went off in the forest. Naruto. You better have a damn good reason for summoning me. Gamabunta commented as the smoke around his body started to dissipate. I'm sorry, Gamabunta-sama. The blonde apologized as he stood on top of the toad boss head, the dark blue chakra still emanating throughout his body. But this guy just really got on my nerves. The Genin's voice had become low and quiet, yet it still held something powerful. And I just feel like knocking some sense into him. The toad looked at the monstrous raccoon standing in front of him. I see. Gamabunta sighed as he put his pipe away. But you owe me one, he added as he unsheathed his sword and pointed its blade at the sand creature. The monster brought its arm forward, both claws immediately shot towards the enormous toad. Jumping high in the sky, Gamabunta prepared to strike the sand creature down with his sword. Looking up at the toad boss, the raccoon shooed a barrage of what appeared to be wind blasts. Teppadama no jutsu. The brownish amphibious countered, releasing several water bullets to intercept the incoming attack. Wind and water meet in midair. The toad's technique managed to stop all the blasts but one. Naruto, hearing his cue, the blonde prepared his own attack. Gokakyu no jutsu. The last wind projectile was taken care of by the Genin's fireball. Landing on the other side of the raccoon, Gamabunta immediately shot forward with his sword ready. At the last second, the monster turned around and brought one of its arm up to block the blade strike. The toad boss immediately took the chance and moved his head up, giving the boy that summoned him an opening. Entenkawa no jutsu. Naruto exclaimed, releasing another powerful blast of heat towards the raccoon's head. Unfortunately for the team of Toad and Boy, the sand monster managed to bring its other arm up to shield himself, at the cost of the limb. Ha ha! A deformed version of Gaara's laughter was heard coming from the gigantic creature. Is this how you were going to make me pay, Naruto-kun? The redhead's voice mocked. Rankuden, the Jinchuriki exclaimed before releasing another set of air bullets. Gamabunta immediately jumped back to evade the wind-based attack. I'm not really sure you're worth all the trouble, Naruto. The amphibious commented as he brought his sword forward, just in case the sand creature launched a sudden attack. Please, Gamabunta-sama, just give me one more opening, the blonde requested. The toad boss gave an exasperated sigh, but still charged forward. Laughter was the deformed Genin's first response. That's it. Come on. Mother and I can't wait to spill all of you blood, the boy exclaimed from somewhere inside the enormous creature. Just like before, the sand monster blocked the incoming sword strike with its good arm, but this time, as the Jinchuriki started to raise his other limb for the second strike, Gamabunta opted to turn his head towards the wounded arm. Teppadama, he said before releasing a barrage of water balls, hardening sand that formed the extremity and causing it to break up, before he left the stage to the Konoha shinobi. Set on taking full advantage of his second chance, the spiky-haired boy wasted no time in forming the necessary hand seals for another attack. Entenkawa no Jutsu, acting on instinct, the monstrous creature stretched his body in order for his head to escape the blast. The Katon Jutsu instead created a hole through the Jinchuriki's chest. Gaara screamed in pain from the attack. Immediately, the monster's tail moved on its own and went around its body to strike the toad. Seeing the attack coming, the amphibious jumped back in the air. Once airborne, Gamabunta set his eyes down on the sand creature. To say the least, the toad boss was getting tried of the demented Jinchuriki. Naruto, I'm going to take the initiative for a bit, he informed before releasing a stream of oil on the raccoon, successfully distracting the creature and allowing the brownish toad to strike down with his sword, severing the remaining monstrous arm. The victory was short-lived. When Gamabunta looked up at his opponent, his eyes widened in surprise as the Jinchuriki's deformed body suddenly opened and lunged forward to swallow the toad boss. Thinking quickly, the amphibious shook his head back, throwing the blonde out of Hammer's way as he continued to fight off the sand that was trying to engulf him. Gamabunta-sama! Naruto shouted as he created a shadow clone in order to break his fall and jumped towards the mass of sand that was currently Gaara. Before the leaf genin could even take a kunai out, a new sand claw suddenly sprouted from the mass and shot toward the blonde, catching the boy in mid-air and driving him straight into the ground. Sapphire eyes slowly opened as Naruto found his body in the forests, or what was left of it, ground while the sand engulfed his body. Look! The redhead's voice came out, excited. Gazing around, the blonde's eyes soon set on what the Sunanin was referring to. The sight of the unconscious Sakura, and the barely conscious Shikamaru and Shino, being crushed by the sand that encased them, while a weakened Sasuke tried to use Houseken to free them, but failing due to the lack of chakra. They're all going to die soon, Gaara announced. And you can't do a thing about it. The glee was evident in the sand genin's voice. I'm going to take them away from you and offer them to Mother. The sand was now covering most of the blonde's body by now. Naruto's eyes pleadingly gazed at his comrades, hoping for a miracle to happen and save them. I'm not strong enough to save them. The sand was already starting to cover Genin's neck. It's just like that fox mask. I am unable to protect the things that I. The sand was now reaching his face. I want to keep them safe. I want to protect them because... Images of the few pleasant memories that the boy had flooded into his mind. With sudden gasp, the Jinchuriki realized how much most of those memories he had shared with his comrades, no, with his friends mean. I won't let you hurt them. Gaara, Naruto declared. By now most of his face was already covered by sand. Because they are all I have. The Sora Sharingan returned to the blonde's last visible eyes and set on the abomination over him. Amaterasu, taking most of the boy's remaining chakra, the black flames engulfed the gigantic mass of sand. Aha! Gaara screamed as the flames spread through his deformed body. Mother! Mother! The monstrous creature backed away from the toad as the dark fire continued to consume his body. Naruto, are you okay? Gamabunta asked as he looked down at the boy that was struggling to get up. Take easy, it's over now. The toad boss stated, knowing quite well the effects of the Amaterasu flames and what would be the Sand Jinchuriki's ultimate fate. The blonde shook his head. No. I have one more. The Konoha genin stated as he began to pull up his right sleeve and revealing a bandaged forearm. Gamabunta's eyes widened at realization. Are you sure you can pull it off? The amphibious asked with concern. Nodding, Naruto looked up at the enormous toad. Yeah, but I'm going to need a lift. At the boy's words, the toad boss sighed and lowered one of his hands. Okay. Get on. The leaf nin proceeded to jump on the toad's palm. After stretching his arm back, Gamabunta shot the young Jinchuriki towards the burning raccoon with all his strength. I only have one shot at this, Naruto thought as he tore the bandages in his arm to give view to a summoning tattoo. Smearing the mark with blood from one of his wounds and gathering his remaining chakra, the blonde preformed the necessary hand seals. Namikaze, Kuchios no Jutsu. Just as Naruto was about to reach Gaara, both Jinchuriki were swallowed up by a blinding light. Chapter 16, Morning Fire. The leaf nin proceeded to jump on the toad's palm. After stretching his arm back, Gamabunta shot the young Jinchuriki towards the burning raccoon with all his strength. I only have one shot at this, Naruto thought as he tore the bandages in his arm to give view to a summoning tattoo. Smearing the mark with blood from one of his wounds and gathering his remaining chakra, the blonde preformed the necessary hand seals. Namikaze, Kuchios no Jutsu. Just as Naruto was about to reach Gaara, both Jinchuriki were swallowed up by a blinding light. Gamabunta let out a sigh as he watched the lustrous flare. Just like Minato, the Toad Boss commented as he took his smoke pipe back out. Gamabunta could feel the summoning jutsu wearing off. The last thing that the enormous toad saw before returning to his world was the gigantic body of sand starting to break down and dissolving as it fell into the ground. Kankuro watched in shock and amazement as the light and the black flames faded away, leaving a cloud of dust in the middle of the clearing. Gaara was defeated. The puppet user managed to say in utter bewilderment. Down in the clearing, Gaara was equally surprised when he found himself standing back on the ground. His body was extremely weakened and his legs were about to give up at any moment, but despite what the redhead had thought a couple of seconds before, he was still pretty much alive. Why? Why did you stop those flames? The Suna Jinchuriki asked the boy standing in front of him as the blonde's image appeared through the dissipating dust. Ragged breathing followed by a low laugh were the initial answers to Gaara's question. I already told you. I can't forgive you right now, Naruto answered as his Sharingan eyes set on the redhead's light blue ones. The right thing to do is give you a chance to change. After all, everyone is supposed to deserve at least one, right? The inquiry was received by a scoff. Supposedly, yeah. Suddenly, the Sand Genin's eyes narrowed. But what makes you think I'll change? There's no way that you can make me betray Mother. Stop calling him your mother already, Naruto exclaimed as he brought up one of his hand to rub his temple. I get all sorts of disturbing images when you call the bijou by that term, the blonde commented. Anger resurfaced inside Gaara at the Konoha nin's words. Shut up. You don't understand the bond between mother and me. You don't understand anything, Baka. Naruto's outburst silenced the redhead. It's you who doesn't understand. As carriers we are discriminated by others. I spent most of my life trying to change their views, trying to show that I wasn't some sort of demon to be feared and hated, yet you, by choosing that thing over anything else, proved their perception of us right, the boy exclaimed as his Sharingan eyes narrowed on the Suna Genin. There's a world out there apart from the bijou. I know, these eyes have seen it, and I already used my chance to try to reach it. Abruptly, Naruto's voice went quiet. The Leaf Shinobi's silence immediately caught Gaara's attention. You failed? The redhead wondered. A dry laugh followed the question again. I don't really know, the blonde admitted. I ended up turning into someone who doesn't really know what he wants anymore, Naruto commented. It's like I'm stuck in a crossroad without knowing where either path will take me. The spiky-haired boy let out another humorless laugh. Funny, isn't it? Here I am trying to get my point across to you while I don't really know what it is myself, Naruto added before his eyes narrowed once again. But what I do know is that I will protect my comrades and teammates no matter what, because they are all I have. Gaara stood silently as he regarded his fellow Jinchuriki and trying to match the glare he was receiving. You have a better shot than I did, the blonde said as his glare weakened. You have people that will stay by your side at any given time. Gaara was surprised when the other boy's gaze moved up to look at Kankuro and Temari standing on the branches. They've proven how much they truly worry about you, the Leaf Genin commented. Gaara scoffed again. Care for me? He repeated. All my life, I have known nothing but apathy and disdain from them, the redhead stated as he glared at the blonde Jinchuriki. Naruto appeared unfazed by the Sand Nin's outburst. Yet they are still here, the spiky-haired boy simply said. They could have left you behind at any point during our fight, but instead, they decided to remain here for you. It's just that you're too blind to see their worried faces. At the blonde's words, Gaara couldn't help but force his neck to turn his head around so that he could look at his siblings. Temari's hand gripped the part of her cloths that laid over her heart, while Kankuro's slight inclination forward of his body was enough for the redhead to know that the puppet user was about to come forward to his aid at any time. You and your mother are the ones that are keeping them so far away. The sound of Naruto's voice snapped the Sand Genin's attention back to the blonde. You have a real opportunity to change your ways, the Jinchuriki stated. I know how difficult the villagers in Suna must be. They're the same here in Konoha. But don't do it for them. Instead, do it for the people you care about and those that care about you, because they are worth it. The redhead boy found no retort to the Leaf Genin's words. Not even Mother had an answer for him. Heh. You're really something, Gaara managed to let out after a while. Maybe this is why I wanted to fight you so much? I guess I needed to find an enemy like you. The Sunanin commented as he regarded the other Jinchuriki. Naruto simply shook his head at Gaara's words. No, we are too similar to be enemies. At least that's what I hope. The blonde stated. You just need to work on your social skills. Something between a smirk and a smile appeared on the Sand Shinobi's face. For someone that tries to appear so cold, you really have a positive look of the world. The redhead commented. He could already feel his body about to give up. Looking at the Konoha genin one more time, Gaara sighed. I wonder if I should feel jealous of you. His vision faded into darkness. Taking a step forward, the blonde caught the Sand genin's body. No, you shouldn't, the Sharingan user said as he looked down at the unconscious redhead. I'm just looking up a well, Naruto commented. Two soft sounds caught the blonde's attention, causing the spiky-haired boy to look up. Both, Kankuro and Temari, stood at the edge of the clearing regarding the two Jinchuriki with caution. Naruto's Sharingan eyes set on the two siblings. I'd suggest you take Gaara and get out of the village before the NBU find you, but if you're looking for a fight. The Jinchuriki's voice carried a menacing tone. I have more than enough energy for the both of you, he added as his eyes narrowed, though he was silently trying to force his body not to give up. We both do, Sasuke's voice announced as the raven-haired boy landed next to the blonde. The others are safe. Shikamaru is taking Sakura back to the village already, the Uchiha informed his teammate. Nodding at his teammate's words, the spiky-haired boy turned to look at the Sand Nins again, daring them to make a hostile move. Taking a deep breath, Kankuro started to move forward, keeping his hands visible to the two-leaf genins. Standing in front of the guy that defeated his brother, the puppet user received a small nod of acknowledgement from the blonde followed by his younger brother's body. Not wasting any time, Kankuro and Temari jumped up on a tree and soon disappeared from view. Letting out an exhausted sigh, Naruto had to use his own knees for support to prevent his body from falling to the ground. Nice tough guy image, I almost bought it for a second. Sasuke's voice broke the silence in the clearing. Snapping out of his trance, the blonde looked up to find, to his surprise, his teammate's hand extended towards him. Letting out a small laugh while shaking his head, the spiky-haired boy took the other Sharingan user's hand. The raven-haired boy swung his teammate's arm over his shoulder in order to support him better. You know, I can still walk by myself, Naruto commented as the two of them started on their way. Yeah right, you can barely stand, let alone walk. If I wanted to, I could just let you fall into the ground, and I could easily trip you right now. Either way you'll end up on the ground, Sasuke countered. A smirk appeared on Naruto's face. Yeah, but I believe I'd feel a lot better with you by my side, the boy commented, giving his relative a small smirk and receiving one back. Sasuke. The blonde's face suddenly turned serious. About my Sharingan. Save it, the raven-haired genin interrupted. We can talk about it later, he added, keeping his eyes on their path. The smirk returned to Naruto's face. I was just going to say that mine is stronger than yours, the genin stated. A scoff escaped the Uchiha. I doubt it. Naruto's smirk grew slightly. I'm not kidding, the blonde began once again. I've seen what you can do with yours and it's just. Suddenly, the spiky-haired boy went silent and his hand shot towards his chest. Are you alright? Sasuke asked as he noticed the change on his teammate. The Jinchuriki gripped his shirt. This was just like what he had felt that morning before the exam. Yeah, I'm alright, the blonde lied, because deep down, he knew that something terrible had just happened. Where's Naruto? Is he coming at all? Sakura asked, unable to lift her eyes from the rain-soaked floor. A couple of feet ahead of her, the last group of villagers were finishing paying their last respects to their fallen Hokage. Managing to glance at the pink-haired girl beside him for a few seconds, Sasuke's eyes immediately shifted back to the grieving procession. I don't know. It took the boy a couple of moments to elaborate. I haven't seen him much since. In fact, I haven't seen him at all since we found out. It still haunted the young Uchiha's mind, the memory from when he and his blonde teammate had made it back to the village after their intense battle with Gaara. They had been met by Shikamaru's father. Apparently Sakura and the others had already been taken in to receive medical attention. Shikaku had tried to lay it on the two genins as gently as he possibly could. Sasuke now thanked him for that, but still, when the moment came to reveal the terrible truth, the raven-haired boy could clearly recall how his teammate had gone eerily quiet and still for well over a minute before giving some poor excuse and going off without receiving any treatment, and before anyone could stop him. Sasuke had gone against his usual nature and had tried to talk to Naruto during the couple of days after the events. Most of the times, he was sure that the blonde was in the apartment, but had decided to ignore his knocks on the doors. I'm worried. Sakura spoke again. No one has seen him since that day. If he isn't even coming to the funeral, then he might be. He came before the ceremony started. The two genins looked at the source of the voice. Kakashi had suddenly appeared next to his students. I saw him come by while I was here earlier. The Jounin's eye scanned the morning congregation. I guess he preferred to show his respect in private. I can relate to those feelings. The silver-haired man shared. The raven-haired boy nodded at his teacher's words. Silent engulfed the three-leaf neens for the next couple of seconds until Sasuke suddenly turned to face his sensei. Wait. Are you telling me that you were actually here on time, but then you left just so that you could be late? The boy asked the other Sharingan user. The bored look on Kakashi's face didn't even waver. You could say that. The Jounin answered simply. The fact that they were in the middle of the ceremony to pay tribute to their fallen comrades was the only thing that kept the Uchiha from attacking his teacher. Shaking the violent ideas off, Sasuke turned back to the service. So, Naruto, are you finally going to tell me what your dream is? The flames started to consume their surroundings. I'm going to be Hokage someday. You better take care of that hat, because someday it's going to be mine. They simply engulfed all in their path, reducing everything to ashes. You want to be Hokage because of the hat? No, I want to become Hokage so that I can protect the whole village. That way, everyone would look up to me. Plus, I like the hat. Hey, that's a nice dream, Naruto. But why didn't you want to tell me? The flames destroyed everything, except for the memories. Because you kept asking for my dream, and becoming Hokage is my goal. Hey, I almost believe you when you say it with such confidence. What? What do you mean almost? I will become Hokage. Why wouldn't those memories disappear? Why couldn't the flames get rid of them? Never change, Naruto. No matter what may happen in this world, always retain your vibrant spirit and bright smile. Remember that. Why wasn't he here anymore to catch him if he fell? The flames continued to devour everything in their paths, except for the memories that seared the boy's heart. No one felt like talking afterwards. It was as if all the villagers had come into an unspoken agreement as they started on their way home. He's stronger. Sasuke's words cut through the silence. Giving her teammate a curious look through her saddened eyes, Sakura waited for the raven-haired boy to elaborate. Naruto. He has become stronger than me. Just as she was about to ask the Uchiha how he could possibly think about something like that in a moment like this one, the pink-haired Kunoichi felt a hand on her shoulder. Looking back at her sensei, the girl understood the message he was trying to get through. In times like these, people tend to want to talk about anything but the matter in front of them. A light chuckle snapped Sakura out of her thoughts. Looking around, the girl was surprised to find the source. I remember a long time ago. Sasuke started as his onyx-colored eyes looked up. The Sandaime told me that one of the hardest things to do for someone that was born talented was to find a suitable rival, someone who could become a goal to be reached. I think Naruto has become that for me. The boy admitted. Sakura wasn't sure what to make of the raven-haired genin's words. One part of her was happy that Sasuke was opening up and sharing this with her, but the other was terrified of the prospect of her teammates fighting again. The memories from the forest of death came rushing back into her mind. Sakura. The pink-haired girl was taken back when the Uchiha suddenly turned to look directly at her. Thank you, about warning me not to face Naruto. Sasuke looked down at his hands before closing them into fists. I'm not sure about what happened last time, but it's now clear to me that a fight between the two of us would have ended in my defeat. Or even worse. The raven-haired boy left the sentence unfinished as he continued. Both, Naruto and I, still have much maturing to do. We have many issues to solve before we finally meet each other across an arena, and until that day comes I will keep on moving forward so I'll be able to protect what I care about, just like Naruto did when he fought Gaara. The Sharingan eyes set on Sakura once again. The Kunoichi was taken back once again by her teammate's words, but before she could think of something so say, the Leaf Genin continued, Sakura. His onyx eyes gazed directly into her emerald ones. Please, don't ask me not to fight Naruto again. Sasuke stated, his eyes never wavered as he spoke. The girl was perplexed by the raven-haired boy's request. She struggled to find something that would change his mind, that would stop her teammates from fighting each other. Anything that she might have been able to say was silenced when the Uchiha placed a hand on her shoulder. Sasuke tried to manage a comforting look to calm his teammate. Naruto and I will fight someday, he said. But I promise you that until then, we will still be Team 7, we will still all be friends. The boy's words came out in a quiet voice. Hearing the sincerity in the Uchiha's words, all the girl could do was nod. A small half-smile formed in Sasuke's lips. I'll keep on training, just as I'm sure Naruto will. I don't know how long it would take or how we will be when it finally comes, so don't worry about it, we will still be here for you, okay? The raven-haired boy said as gave the girl's shoulder a reassuring squeeze. The leaf kunoichi nodded in response before looking up and smiling herself. Meeting the smile with another half, Sasuke removed his hand from the pink-haired girl's shoulder before turning around and starting to walk away. And who knows? The Sharingan user stopped for a second. Naruto and I might have to face each other for leadership of the Uchiha clan. Maybe our fight would not be until then, he added before reassuming his walk back to the Uchiha compound. Sakura pressed her hands against her heart. She still had many mixed feelings about the situation between her teammates, but for now, she could smile with the thought that maybe things were starting to finally improve. Sakura. The pink-haired girl's thoughts were cut off by the sound of her name. Turning around, she found herself facing her former teacher. Iruka walked towards Team 7 carrying a worried look on his face. What's wrong? Sakura asked, realizing how foolish her question had sounded after all that had happened. The Chunin seemed to struggle to find the correct words for what he needed to say. It's about Naruto, he finally said. The mention of his altered student caught Kakashi's attention. What happened? Despite what he showed to his two other students, the Jounin was really concerned about Naruto. After everything that had happened, the silver-haired still had not been able to muster enough courage to face his blonde student. Iruka found himself struggling to answer the Jounin too. He still couldn't help but think that Kakashi was partly to blame for what happened to Naruto a few months ago. It had broken his heart to find how broken the one radiant boy had been left. Flashback. Despite telling himself that he only stopped there for his former student, Iruka had to admit that had come to thoroughly love Ichiraku ramen. Nearing the ramen bar, the Chunin was not surprised to find a familiar blonde seating next to many empty bowls. It didn't take long for the Chunin's eyes to become aware of the lack of bright orange in the boy's clothing, as well as the sullen expression that should have been impossible with a bowl of ramen in such close proximity. Iruka-san. The man turned at the sound of his name. The owner's daughter, I am if he wasn't mistaken, had approached him with a worried look on her face. What's wrong? Iruka asked, sensing the young lady's distress. The girl's eyes shifted momentarily to gaze at the blonde boy at the other side of the bar before looking back at the Chunin. It's Naruto. She started. He's been like this since he came. He simply sat down and ordered. He didn't made any of his usually conversation with Ota-san and me. Ayam explained rapidly under her breath, trying to prevent Naruto to realize she was talking about him. Calm down, was the first thing Iruka managed to say. I'm sure it's not that bad. All he said was thank you when Ota-san told him that the ramen was on the house. The girl revealed. Iruka's eyes widened at that piece of information. He could clearly recall all those days of detention where Naruto had spent hours talking about how much he liked ramen. The dish had become some sort of a solace in the cruel world that the young boy was forced to live in, while other people might dismiss it with the idea that the boy just wasn't in the mood for ramen. Iruka knew better. Ayam took another glance at Naruto. I'm worried about him, Iruka-san, she confessed. This is the first time he came in over a month, and he's like this. What if something happened during a mission and he... Please, Ayam-san, don't bother Iruka-sensei with such a trivial matter, the young lady yelped at the blonde genin's words. Iruka's eyes traveled towards his former student to find him looking back at them from his seat. A gasp escaped the older shinobi as he realized how much the boy's eyes had changed. Once vibrant and shining sapphire orbs had become dark and sullen. The smile that had taken shape in the boy's face was nothing but a pitiable shell of what it used to be. Iruka suddenly felt like the night had become darker at the thought of losing Naruto's smile. I'm sorry I can't stay and talk, Iruka-sensei, but it's late and I have training tomorrow. The genin suddenly said and began to stand up. See you later, Iruka-sensei, Naruto said, giving the older man a small, courteous bow. Ichiraku-san, Ayam-san, good night. He gave 2 more bows and another empty smile before turning around and walking off. The Chunin was left speechless. That's what I was talking about. Iruka registered Ayam's quiet whisper. Not wasting any time, the Leaf Nin turned around and started off towards the one person that would know what had happened to the once energetic blonde. He had never made such a short time to the Hokage's tower. End flashback. Iruka had been left shocked, saddened, enraged, and concerned after what the late Sandaime had revealed to him. Unfortunately, the only person he had for an outlet now was the silver-haired Nin. If it hadn't been for his complete disregard for his student, Naruto wouldn't have Realizing where the Chunin's train of thought was, Kakashi immediately looked away. The Jounin didn't want to be reminded of all the wrongs he had done during the past few weeks. The fact that he still had not found the strength to do anything about it did not help at all. Reminding himself of the matter at hand, the brown-haired man decided to disregard the silver-haired Jounin for now and turn to face Sakura again. I was worried when he never showed up to the service. Irika started to explain. I asked around and it appears that he was seen going towards the training fields right before the ceremony started. I'm concerned about how he's dealing with this whole situation. Normally, I would go see him myself, but the Chunin turned around. Sakura followed the older man's gaze to the Sandame's grandson, who stood at the other side of the walkway with a grief-filled face. I promised Asuma that I would walk Konohamaru home, the Chunin informed. So, could you please check on him? Just to see how he's dealing with everything that has happened. The brown-haired man requested. The pink-haired girl didn't hesitate to nod. Of course, Irika-sensei. In fact, I'm a little worried about him as well, she responded. Irika gave his former student a smile of gratitude. Thank you, Sakura. Well, I'd better take Konohamaru back to his house now. Please tell me if something happens with Naruto, okay? He said and waited for the girl to nod in agreement before turning around and walking towards the grief-stricken boy, sending a glare in Kakashi's direction during the process. I'll be going home too, the silver-haired man suddenly said. Irika had reminded him yet again of how unfit of a sensei he had been during the past couple of months, how he had left two of the most important persons in his life, and how his student had ended up paying for his mistake. The Jounin just felt like being alone to sulk. See you later, Sakura, he added, excusing himself before starting to walk away. The young kunoichi couldn't help but think that her teacher's voice felt quiet and weak. Okay, Kakashi-sensei, she said, not sure if he could hear her, but nevertheless she tried to keep any blame from her words, even if a part of her heart felt otherwise. Shaking her head, Sakura turned around and set off towards the training field. We'll arrive there in a couple of days. Kisame waited a couple of seconds for a reply. Receiving none, the former Miss Nin continued. News have already spread about the attack the village suffered at the hands of Sand and Sound. Still, the retort was absent. Like it takes some sort of genius to realize that this is all Orochimaru's doing. I mean, they even found the Kazekage's corpse already well into decomposition, he added. The blue-skinned shinobi waited yet again, but no matter how much time passed or how long they walked, his partner remained silent. Sighing, Kisame looked to his side. Itachi Uchiha walked silently next to him with his eyes set on the road. You've been really preoccupied as of late, the missing Nin commented. I'm not sure if I want to infiltrate Konoha while your mind is drifting somewhere else. You don't have to worry about that. The Uchiha suddenly spoke for the first time in a couple of days. I already have several plans for infiltrating and escaping the village, the former leaf shinobi assured. Kisame couldn't help but snort at his partner's words. And here I thought we were just going to wing it, the Kiri said. You know, Jiraiya is supposed to be in Konoha. What should we do about him? The missing Nin wondered as he looked at his partner again. The black-haired man's face showed no concern about the legendary Sannin. His presence in the village has been taken in consideration during the formulation of our mission, the Sharingan user stated. We will act accordingly to what we need to do in order to accomplish our objective, he callously added. A sigh escaped Kisame. Just once, I wish that involved staying the night in a brothel to accomplish the task, he commented, before letting out a long yawn. Anyways, I'll be fine as long as I get first row seat to the Uchiha family reunion, the man added as a grin appeared in his face, and he glazed at his partner. Itachi had already returned to absolute silence. She moved as quietly as her genin skills would allow her. Sakura was so deep into the training area that she had no idea what field she was exactly in. Whichever it was, it would have to be near the edge of the forest. After several minutes of searching around, the pink-haired girl was finally able to catch a trace of her blonde teammate's chakra and followed it deeper into the training fields. Her uneasiness increased with every step she took. Apart from their interaction, or lack thereof, in the Forest of Death, she had not actually talked to Naruto since the boy's transformation. The kunoichi really didn't know what she was going to say once she was face to face with the blonde. She didn't even know that she could expect to find once she got there, which, if the intense chakra in the surroundings was any indicator, was right about now. A gasp escaped Sakura once she stepped into the training field where the chakra had led her. Black flames, that was all that she could think about. The terms kept resonating in her mind time and time again as she gazed around the clearing. The flames that she had seen only twice in her life, once in the Forest of Death and the other during the wild fight against Gaara, both time it had been produced by Naruto. Her eyes immediately moved to the middle of a clearing where her teammates stood. There were no sobs, no shouts of anger, no gritting of teeth. There was only a low breathing as he stood rigidly before the black flames, observing them as they devoured all the surrounding trees. Sakura took small steps towards the blonde, slowly approaching him until she mustered enough courage. "Naruto," the girl whispered. The boy made no acknowledgement of her presence, but merely stood there, watching the dark flames overwhelm anything they touched and reducing it to ashes. "Naruto." The pink-haired girl tried again, this time with a little more confidence. A small jerk of a hand and a slight shift between feet was proof enough that he was aware of her presence, but that was enough for her. "Is it over?" The question caught her off guard. His voice was so low and void of emotions that she was left slightly startled, and it took her a few moments to answer his question. "Yes, it ended a little while ago," the kunoichi managed to say. Naruto went completely silent after that. The blonde simply continued watching the flames burn the training field to the ground. She couldn't take it anymore. How was it possible that, when one teammate was finally opening out, the other was shutting himself away? It was obvious to her how the blonde was drowning in sorrow, and yet he wouldn't even try to reach out for help, but instead sealed his emotions off and tried to bear the pain of loss by himself. Pushing her audacity to the limit, Sakura reached out and laid her hand on the spiky-haired boy's shoulder. It was a slow movement, but the action left the kunoichi astonished anyway. Moments after her hand touched the blonde's shoulder, a silence overcame the clearing. But suddenly, slowly but surely, her teammates started to turn around. When they finally came face to face, Sakura gazed at the boy in front of her, as his head slowly descended until it was resting on her shoulder. A skipped heartbeat was barely registered as she was left frozen by the impossibility of her situation. Sakura needed a few moments to recover, but she was finally able to regain control of her body and moved her arms to embrace the distraught blonde in front of her into a comforting hug. She wanted to let him know that he wasn't alone. Yes, he had lost someone important, but he still had people that cared for him. She wanted him to be able to feel secure once again. Suddenly, she felt water running down her shoulder. It had stopped raining for a while now. Nevertheless, the pink-haired girl glanced up at the sky, only to find the dissipating clouds starting to give way to the sun. The kunoichi's eyes widened as she looked to her side at grieving blonde. It's going to rain again." Naruto's voice was just as even and stoic as before. A small smile graced the girl's face. "Yes," she agreed. "It seems that it will," the pink-haired nin said as she tightened her hold on her teammate. He was surprised that a smile found its way to his face so soon. Jiraiya sighed as he watched the two genin in the middle of the clearing before turning around and starting to walk away. Looking down, he regarded the scroll bestowed upon him merely a few hours before the catastrophe. "If you gave them to me, then I assume that you trust my judgment one when he should get it," the Sannin said as he continued to walk. "The brat still has some growing up to do, but—" He looked back at the clearing for a second. "I'm sure he'll get there," the white-haired man commented. "I'm sure this generation will do just fine," Jiraiya stated as he looked up into the sky. "You can just rest now and don't worry about them. They'll live up to all of our expectations. I guess that's because of your influence on them." Another smile formed on his lips. "Thanks, old geezer."